The hull groaned under the crushing weight of a cobalt storm. Red targeting lasers sliced upward through thick atmospheric clouds, ignoring the ground entirely. Gravity pulled mercilessly at the warship's titanium bones. Above the swirling tempest, 50 Imperial dreadnoughts waited in perfect, unyielding formation. Inside the failing vessel, a commander stood amid raining sparks, refusing to order a retreat. Systems flatlined across the main console. Oxygen scrubbers choked on ozone. He simply watched the radar ping, calculating the exact second his shattered ship would strike back. You'll want to hear exactly how 3 centuries of perfect conquest broke in a single afternoon. 3 weeks prior, the air smelled of recycled oxygen and stale coffee. Defense Station Alpha hung silently over Earth's western hemisphere. Commander Eric Wells stared at a glowing datapad. His orders contained zero ambiguity. Observe, record, return. The Nelvarian Empire had consumed 50 independent systems with absolute mathematical precision. Humanity's Security Council wanted intelligence, not dead heroes. Wells traced the smooth leather groove on his command chair's left armrest. He had survived the Proxima conflict by burying his instinct to intervene. Now he commanded the Defender. It was an experimental vessel built by a species that had enjoyed 3 centuries of uninterrupted peace. They were sending a ghost to watch monsters. The Arcturus asteroid belt offered flawless thermal cover. Shards of frozen methane masked the Defender's engine emissions. On the bridge, Lieutenant Amber Garrett's fingers flew across her tactical terminal. Her diction remained rapid, utterly devoid of panic. Destroyer class inbound, entering orbital range of the mining colony. On the primary viewer, a massive insectoid vessel blotted out the local star. Admiral Zexalin commanded from that flagship. He possessed fractured amber compound eyes and rigid chitin armor. He expected total compliance from the universe. Conquered species followed established statistical models. They fought predictably. They died mathematically. They assimilated quietly. A small civilian transport broke atmosphere, fleeing the colony below. 20 human families packed into a retrofitted cargo hauler. A mother clutching a faded blue blanket pressed her face against a porthole. The Nelvarian destroyer casually rotated its secondary batteries toward the fleeing civilian craft. Wells gripped his chair. The worn leather offered no answers. His strict parameters demanded inaction. If he fired, Earth lost the element of surprise entirely. If he held his ground, innocent people burned. A targeting lock illuminated the refugee ship in harsh green light, a death sentence written in photons. Wells rubbed his thumb against the leather. Bring weapons online. Amber blinked once. Sir, standing orders dictate observation exclusively. Plot an intercept course, fire. Experimental directed energy weapons tore through the vacuum of space. They bypassed conventional thermal signatures, striking the destroyer's propulsion ring directly. The massive Imperial ship spun off its axis. Weapons fire scattered harmlessly into deep space. The civilian transport immediately jumped to warp. The silence on the bridge felt absolute. Every officer understood the gravity of the infraction. Wells hadn't just saved a handful of civilians. He had formally introduced humanity to a galactic superpower. Amber's console chimed sharply. They are pinging our signature. 31 ships altering course. She paused, analyzing the fresh data streams. They are matching our trajectory. Time to arrival in the Sol system, Wells asked. 3 weeks. Humanity required months to fully mobilize its reserve fleet. Wells had bought them 21 days. The Nelvarian fleet didn't merely pursue. They abandoned the Arcturus colony entirely, prioritizing the anomaly. The hive mind recognized a variable it hadn't previously calculated. 2 weeks later, the Alpha Centauri debris field transformed into a graveyard. 4 human ships formed a desperation line. Defender, Valiant, Dauntless, and Resolute. Their objective shifted from intelligence gathering to raw obstruction. Zexalin's armada arrived with terrifying symmetry. They moved like a single, massive organism. No wasted thrust occurred. No hesitation existed in their maneuvers. "Execute Delta pattern," Wells ordered. The human ship scattered violently. Valiant dove beneath a massive iron asteroid, deploying proximity mines along its wake. Dauntless slashed across the enemy's right flank. She vented fake plasma trails to deliberately blind Imperial sensors. Resolute anchored her position, firing continuous railgun salvos to create a physical wall of depleted uranium. This was the human variable at play, pure unpredictability, chaos weaponized. On the Imperial flagship, Zexalin's mandibles clicked in a precise rhythm of mounting frustration. His compound eyes processed a battlefield that stubbornly refused to stabilize. These mammalian creatures did not form logical shield walls. They did not protect strategic hyperspace lanes. They fought like cornered predators. A stray kinetic slug clipped the Valiant starboard engine housing. The piercing screech of shearing metal echoed through the open comms channel. Valiant dropped completely out of stealth, spinning uncontrollably into the open void. 3 Nelvarian cruisers instantly locked onto the crippled vessel. They operated on absolute efficiency, swarming the weakest link without requiring orders. The Imperial cruisers attempted to calculate the trajectory, but the sheer volume of chaotic fire overwhelmed their targeting matrices initially. "Valiant is venting atmosphere," Amber reported. Her voice maintained its steady cadence. "Resolute, provide heavy cover fire and escort them out of the sector immediately," Wells commanded. That left 2 human ships against a swarm of 50. Moments later, Dauntless lost its primary reactor containment. A localized electromagnetic pulse burst from a Nelvarian scout ship, fried their maneuverability thrusters. Armor plating sheared away into the void as secondary explosions rocked their hull. "Dauntless is dead in the water," Amber stated. Wells studied the tactical display. The enemy formation was finally adapting to the chaos. Zexalin realized rigid formations failed against erratic targets. The Imperial ships systematically broke their perfect geometric lines. They began sweeping forward individually, hunting. The defenders' shields hovered at 20% capacity. Ammunition reserves flashed a critical red warning. Wells stood from his command chair. If the Dauntless remained stranded, her crew would be slaughtered within minutes. He needed to draw the entire hive mind's processing power. He needed to become the absolute biggest threat in the sector. "Broadcast an open channel on all Imperial frequencies," Wells ordered. Amber routed the unencrypted signal. Wells didn't speak a single word. He simply transmitted the defender's exact navigational data. He coupled it with a localized jamming frequency that disrupted the Nelvarian internal hive link. It acted as the digital equivalent of a blinding flashbang in a pitch-black room. Every compound eye in the Armada turned toward their coordinates. "They took the bait," Amber whispered. "All 50 ships are tracking our vector." "Set course for the gas giant," Wells said. "Maximum thrust." The massive ringed planet loomed ahead in the viewport. It was a swirling sphere of toxic amber and volatile cobalt gases. Its atmospheric pressure could crush a standard titanium hull in minutes. No logical pilot would enter its gravity well. Zexalin knew this fact. Mathematical probability dictated the human ship was committing a tactical suicide to avoid capture. But Zexalin's models hadn't accounted for the experimental targeting algorithm, still resting unactivated in the Defender's mainframe. The Defender hit the upper atmosphere like a stone skipping across solid concrete. Violent, bone-rattling vibrations tore through the deck plating. Ambient temperature spiked drastically. Alarms blared a continuous, deafening wail of structural warnings. Above them, the Imperial fleet halted their pursuit. Zexalin positioned his dreadnought exactly at the gravity well's stable edge. He would wait. The hive mind possessed infinite, calculating patience. They would simply watch the atmospheric pressure crush the rebellious anomaly. Inside the storm, external visibility dropped to absolute zero. The sharp, acrid tang of burning wire insulation choked the enclosed bridge. Wells braced himself against the vibrating tactical console. Current altitude. Critical, Amber replied. Hull integrity failing rapidly. We have maybe 60 seconds before total implosion. Upload the new algorithm to the missile bays. Link it directly to the external environmental sensors. The algorithm didn't require visual confirmation to function. It mathematically calculated the microgravitational shifts caused by 50 massive objects hovering just outside the atmospheric boundary. Wells calmly wiped a smear of leaking blue coolant off the corner of his cracked tactical display. "Are we locked?" he asked. "Coordinates synthesized. We are blind, but the math is solid." A secondary conduit ruptured violently, plunging the bridge into emergency crimson lighting. The hull groaned under the crushing weight of the cobalt storm. Red targeting lasers sliced upward through the thick clouds, ignoring the ground entirely. Gravity pulled mercilessly at the ship. Above, 50 Imperial dreadnoughts waited in unyielding formation. Inside, Wells stood amid the raining sparks. This wasn't a desperate suicide run. It was a calculated ambush from the belly of a leviathan. Fire everything. Experimental directed energy beams and modified kinetic missiles surged upward. They rode the massive thermal vents, entirely masked by the planet's intense radiation field until the final second. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Zexalin watched the swirling clouds below. He fully expected crushed debris to surface. Instead, the deck beneath his chitinous feet violently pitched upward. 6 high-yield strikes impacted the dreadnought's ventral armor simultaneously. The sheer kinetic force breached the primary hangar bay. Secondary explosions rippled through the immediate fleet as 3 escort cruisers caught the brunt of the unexpected barrage. Zexalin stumbled backward, catching himself with his secondary arms. The mathematical certainty that governed his entire existence shattered instantly. He did not feel tactical frustration. He felt something entirely foreign to a 300-year conqueror. He felt profound uncertainty. Amid the ensuing chaos, a single automated Nelvarian scout pod launched itself blindly into deep space, broadcasting an anomalous, unencrypted distress frequency. The Defender violently breached the planet's polar opening. She escaped the crushing pressure just as the primary hull plates began to buckle inward. The warship limped into clear space, bleeding vital oxygen and trailing frozen plasma coolant. They were dead in the water, defenseless. But Zexalin did not order a pursuit. The Imperial formation remained broken. Ships scattered erratically to assess catastrophic damage they had never expected to take. They were entirely paralyzed by the sudden introduction of tactical doubt. Before the hive mind could reorganize its hierarchy, proximity alarms triggered across the entire sector. Space tore open. 300 United Earth warships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously. The delaying tactic had worked. The crucial hours bought with shattered titanium and broken protocol had allowed humanity to fully mobilize. New dreadnoughts, dwarfing the Nelvarian flagship, positioned themselves in an unbreakable blockade formation. Wells let out a slow, ragged breath. He looked down at his command chair. He ran his thumb across the worn leather armrest. The groove felt noticeably deeper now. It was permanently altered by the heavy weight of a choice that had redirected galactic history. The bridge remained silent save for the low hum of failing life support. A single medical rescue shuttle drifted slowly toward the battered exterior airlock. Blue light from the massive gas giant painted the shattered console glass.